to appreciate and acknowledge that everything is an offer. In those moments when the blows come, you think they're an attack, not an offer. But when I began to shift and realize that, okay, this feels like a blow, but what could this also be? This could be giving me something that I have to use my creativity to make a new direction. I feel more like a goddess. Like I have such complex talents and abilities. Like I could create worlds without number. I can create my home. I can amplify future generations because I've believed there is greatness that is nurturing and growing within me. And when I step into that, I am a stronger mother, a stronger wife, a stronger sovereign being.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. Do you ever feel like life has not turned out as expected? You didn't sign up for this. This is not how it was supposed to be. You are supposed to fall in love and then walk down the aisle with the most perfect man in the world. He was never going to change, and he was going to love you forever. And you're going to have the perfect kids, and you are going to be the perfect mom, and you are going to give them that perfect childhood, just magical and carefree. You are going to do everything right, and your life was going to be so happy. Is that what happened? I don't know if your life turned out as expected, but mine didn't. And today's guest didn't either. Shannon Milliman is a keynote speaker and the creator of the one-woman show, Not So Supernova. She's a wife and mother of 5 whose vision of her own future turned upside down when life got in the way. And today she's going to share with us the journey that inspired her show on marriage and motherhood. Welcome, Shannon.
Hello, thank you so much.
So I'm going to take you back to a memory. I want to go back to your wedding day, and you're standing there with your husband and you're imagining this amazing future that's just laid out before you. What did you think your life was going to be like?
You know, I thought I would be staying at home, baking bread, gingerly folding laundry, supporting my husband in a career that's fulfilling to him, creating art on the side, teaching my children to garden because of those enriching principles that you learn at home by the side of people who love you. And, you know, some Saturday evenings I get to do that, but I got to create and craft a new navigated story. It just wasn't quite as I anticipated.
So tell us about that then. So I love this vision. We've got this vision, stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm sure you would have had a great Pinterest channel, right? You would have been doing everything, the crafts, and take us now to what life is like.
Okay, so I am a training analyst by day, and side hustle, I have a speaking keynote business, and I provide workshops that teach improv techniques to help navigate and make life more resilient. And I think it all comes from my own path that I've learned. So I thought I would be a stay-at-home mother and supportive wife. And I have been able to learn that I have different angles and perspectives to contribute in different ways. So I learned that just because things didn't go as I expected them to do. I have a husband who is a very great partner, and he's a good friend. He's a good husband. He's a good soul. And I look back, but he's not really super well suited for the corporate 9-to-5 world. He's very artistic and just thinks philosophically and artistically. And sometimes that doesn't fit into the how to get bread on the table, how to pay the mortgage. And for a long time, I tried to just accept that. I tried to go against what was natural, and I tried to force him into scenarios to provide, and that I would submit to nurturing in just those ways, and there was no flexibility. And actually a life experience where I won't go into it, but we were robbed, and it was all of my husband's musical equipment that he was ready to start a business was robbed. And so it caused us to have to pause and to circumvent our plans. And we knew desperately we just had to make a new turn and pivot. And that turned out to be me getting an entry-level job in the corporate world, and soon climbing up the corporate ladder and doing pretty well, and finding I had great skills to contribute. But it wasn't what I planned. And so it was very frustrating. And I would take it out on my husband, and I would be resentful and genuinely angry that my needs and desires weren't respected. And he felt probably genuinely frustrated that I couldn't acknowledge and appreciate his talents and strengths because they weren't exactly what I said they would be. And I look back and I think about that first wedding night, you know, what you said. It's the things that I love about him most that frustrate me the most. It is his ability to think artistically and philosophically and outside of the box. But those are the things that don't make life function. And so I ended up making a play that wasn't a creative expression of my life experience. And I didn't anticipate it that it would turn out to be somewhat therapeutic. I wanted it to be a piece of art, but it turned out to be both. And I found when I lean into that power that I have to create the things that I need to, it kind of resolves all the other strife between, you know, in my marriage and other strife that comes up with parenting.
So what I really like about this is that you had everything planned out in your mind.
Why
And
not?
then it was one blow after another, like, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. How do you think you found that resilience and that flexibility and that open-mindedness to say, okay, I dreamed of being like super mom with a husband that was going to go off and earn a living so that I could be like the earth mother. I can't do that. My husband has to be earth dad. I'm going to go out and be the corporate queen. How did you find that ability in yourself to radically switch your expectations?
You know, I don't think that in the time I identified this way, but it is some of the powerful improv techniques that I've come to acknowledge and use. And one of them is to appreciate and acknowledge that everything is an offer. In those moments when the blows come, you think they're an attack, not an offer. But when I began to shift and realize that, okay, this feels like a blow, but what could this also be? This could be giving me something that I have to use my creativity to make a new direction. And when I, like an example, when I was a customer service representative and I was dreaming for a higher job, there was a corporate trainer job that came up, and I had not had training experience, though I feel like, I'm suited for that. The position came up and the job description said you need 2 years experience. And I didn't have 2 years experience, but I knew I had that desire and some of the transferable skills. So I considered that an offer. And I also thought, oh, if I get this job, then I'm committed to this corporate life, and I can't cling back to the fact that maybe someday I'll be the dream mother that I want to be. And so I didn't want to say yes and to the possibility. I wanted to just sit in my frustration, in my resentment. And you know what? That's not very productive on my insides, my outsides, my union, and my desire ultimately to teach my children how to thrive and live abundantly and to say yes to the offers that come. So when I tried and just took that risk, I found out I got the job. It was really fun to train folks and to hear from their life experiences. And then, you know, you have so many reciprocal blessings out of that. Like I would come home and have these perspectives that I could share with my husband and my children. And I realized when I began to say yes and really believe the yes, there was a certain amount of peace that came, and I could appreciate my husband for his complex gifts, and I could appreciate my abilities, and everything just seemed more optimistic. It sounds simplistic, but there's a real power in just saying yes and seeing that blow as an offer.
That is fantastic. I love that. So what I also love though is that you said yes to a corporate role, but you didn't have to give up that artistic side of your personality because you created this play. So tell us about the play.
Yeah. So it has some actual verbatim real diary entries from myself as a teenager, and it juxtaposes kind of the what I dreamed it would be like through my real voice to what it actually is like. And there's some humorous scenarios of learning to breastfeed and how it does not go as I planned, and my daughter seems to hate me and reject me right at the beginning, and that trend continues. And just finding that, you know, my husband isn't who I thought he was, my daughter isn't who I thought she should be, and then realizing that maybe they are exactly who they are supposed to be, and they are exactly what I need, and that we have this, you know, triage that is just beautiful, and we learn from each other. And, you know, I think it's not something you like to say, but sometimes you don't appreciate, and it's almost like you don't like the people closest to you. I mean, you know, like is, you know, but it's just they make you most frustrated. But in that, isn't there a possibility that there's a complexity that they have the most to give to you, you have the most to give to them, and that divide you have is more precious because you have to work harder and you notice the wins more dramatically than you would if someone who's just like you.
I really like that. It's just what you said before. It's turning that difficulty into an offer. So when you butt up against your daughter or your husband isn't who you wanted him to be, it's not a blow that's shattering your dream. It's actually an offer to step into something you never imagined. Mm-hmm. And what I am actually really interested in is you really dreamed about the traditional feminine role. And I think most of us women, when we think about what it really feels like to be a woman who's made it, a woman who has stepped into who she's supposed to be, we often think about the perfect marriage. He goes off and works. We have this beautiful home that we tend to amazingly. We like garden with our children. We make beautiful meals, and that's supposed to make us feel full as women. Can I ask you, do you feel more feminine or less feminine or the same? How has that changed since you stepped into the role of breadwinner?
What a beautiful question. I believe I feel more feminine. I feel more like a goddess. Like I have such complex talents and abilities. Like I could create worlds without number. I can create my home. I can amplify future generations because I've believed there is greatness that is nurturing and growing within me. And when I step into that, I am a stronger mother, a stronger wife, a stronger sovereign being. So that's really thoughtful. You know, when you said that, it made me think about that I thought, and I did dream and want to be a stay-at-home mother. And there's no wrong path in the lives that we end up taking, you know. But in one of the diary entries of my actual teenage daughter, I see that I struggled with that. And I said, I wonder if I could be a working mom. And I said, it seems like it would be really frustrating to hear screaming kids all day, you know, and have to do all the dishes. But maybe I'll have to think about it. I'll have to pray about it. And I look back on that when you said that, I'm like, man, so I was rolling those thoughts around maybe in embryo when I was young and innocent, where I might need that nurture to be processed into my veins when I'm an adult and mature and needed to reflect on that. So you never know where your wisdom's going to come from. It might come from yourself.
That is fantastic. So I also want to know, so you and your husband have taken completely different directions to where you expected. Do you feel like your relationship is closer now than it was before?
Absolutely. And I would say that it's even beautiful to say relationship can be close, but you ebb and flow, because marriage or any relationship, but especially marriage, is complicated, you know. We are working on a project together, kind of the early phases of it, where we're going to try creating a performance together. And we have not done that before. He does his music independently, and I do my theatrical creations independently. And we see things differently, and that's been part of why, life hasn't been how we expected. But again, the improv thing comes up, and as we work together, and as I try to define, are we closer now? I think of sorry and worry being pieces that we don't need. They don't do us any good. This is kind of an improv thing too, where sorry is something of the past and you have regret and remorse. And so when I can let go of the sorry, I don't paint him in some artificial way. And when I let go of worry, I'm not worried about, well, how's this going to turn out? This isn't going to work. No, we can't do this. And it helps me be in the present and to remember the closest that we experience is now, current. Look in his eyes, hold his hand, believe in the dream that he has, and he reciprocates that for me. And I know it's so hard, we go back to past and future, but when we can just claim those moments, I think it helps us really get towards that closeness we all crave.
So I want to know, so let's say there's a woman out there watching who had this beautiful vision for her life, and it's all turned out to be a complete mess. It just feels like her life is ruined and she regrets so much the loss of all the dreams she had. What advice would you give her?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's lovely. I think my instant advice is for her to consider writing and sorting out her thoughts her own way, because she probably has the answers within. And to try something new and say yes to whatever that is. Yes, and you don't trust what it might be. You don't know what it's going to be, but do something that's uncomfortable. And maybe that is creating a play. Maybe that is picking up guitar. Maybe that is smashing your dinner that you made lovingly on the table because you're angry and you need a reset, But trying something new and believing that you do have that resilience and agility inside of you to make changes that feel better, and to be patient with yourself and not think about the past and the future, but the now.
Yeah. So you are a professional keynote speaker, and I love this. You inspire emotional intelligence through the power of laughter. So tell us about your speaking.
Sure. So I feel that the thing that people remember most when you are learning or, in a speaking engagement or something is you remember if you laughed, if you had positive feelings about it. And yes, the principles that are learned, the takeaways and the outcomes are, secondarily important. But on some soul level, what matters is that we feel uplift in our life. And I think that humor does that. So whenever I'm trying to teach principles that are true and can make a difference in improving your life or efficiency or at work, I think the most important thing is, am I weaving humor into that? Because it's more easy to receive. And I think we learn to laugh at ourselves, we accept our misgivings, and it's okay. And it gives us this power and permission to try something new that might make a better outcome. So when I speak, I love being able to take people through kind of silly activities that seem silly, through improv things where you're, maybe clapping and snapping and looking at each other in the eyes. But then in the debrief, you realize all the value that can come from those simple human connections. And it all started with a laugh.
So are you still going to keep doing your one-woman show?
Yeah, I am. It's, I guess I didn't anticipate continuing it. This last performance last week, I did a show here in Portland, Oregon, and I thought it would be my encore performance, the final. But the thing is, it's rolling a power that's greater than me, and I feel that it's making a change. Like, it's the sort of play that resolves in a very introspective way, and causes a lot of conversation behind closed doors, and people will tell me later. but I don't always hear the feedback. But it's important to talk about what we think should be and what it actually is, and to accept that. So yeah, I love performing it at retreats, and I put it on. So yeah, I guess maybe I'd like to take a pause for a little while, but I can't help that destiny and fate and the powers that be are telling me that I have to keep sharing the message. So yeah, it gives me a lot of joy to give people an opportunity to talk about things that are important too.
And for those of you watching, if you want to check out if there's a next performance of Not So Supernova near you, or you just want to connect with Shannon and find out what she's doing, we have a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Shannon. That's yourbrilliance.org/Shannon. Shannon, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Oh, wow. What privilege. Resiliency, agility, and change are the trifecta of power that you can find within yourself. So say yes to it, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.